If you run an e-com store and you've heard the language around OpenClaw, Hermes agents, but you just don't know where to begin, this video is going to help e-com operators understand how to use agent harnesses and what they should be used for. And as a disclaimer, this is not an install tutorial on how to install Hermes agents. There's plenty of videos out there, but this is more of a blueprint of how I, with my e-commerce stores, how I use agent harnesses and how you can hopefully learn from it and implement it into your store. A lot of times I think most operators think, what agent workflow should I build first? But really, everything is going to be case by case. So really the question you should be asking is, what work keeps slipping? What is a workflow or a pipeline that is just inconsistent for your brand and you know could be improved upon? That is where I would attack workflows with the agent harness first. By the end of this video, you should know how to create an agent harness OS and what should be some of your first workflows that you should start. So to start, we're going to get into what I would do first. So understanding how an agent OS, thinks. I use Hermes, by the way, so you might hear me reference it, but it's all about the input to the context, to the agent jobs, to the queues, to the readbacks, and then ultimately the decisions. Let's break down step by step what I'm talking about here and why this matters. So your input that you're going to put into this for the agents to operate successfully is going to be all the data, all of your sources of revenue. First, Shopify, obviously. They have a CLI. They made it super easy to be able to install. Use that as well. You want to make sure you're uploading everything to give it the ultimate context, which is the second point, but you need to input it properly. So customer lists, creator lists that you're using for influencers, email lists, SMS lists, your content ideas. A brand Bible is one of the most important ones I think you should deliver if you're trying to brand your brand. Documents, any reviews, sources, and guide the agent essentially to pinpoint all of these extraction points for what we're trying to uncover when we get to the end of this. So the input's going to vary for everybody. For example, if I was an Amazon brand, you want to input as much data around your product, how it's doing on Amazon, and it's going to be much different for somebody that's in, selling mainly through influencer marketing on TikTok Shop. Different types of inputs. So understand what is needed. If there's something that's missing in this OS, the agent cannot give you structured strategy feedback or executive decisions because it doesn't have the correct context. And that goes into our second point, which is the context. The context for the input is really going to be what matters here. So I talked about the brand Bible. The brand Bible needs to be in here for context purposes, because if you have like medical disclaims that you want to make sure you never put, or hard rules like never use generic marketing language like this will heal this, you need to make sure your brand Bible is established. Your brand colors, your identity, your voice, your tone, the persona you're going after, the target audience, your TAM list, all of that matters in the context that we're talking about here. I like to also, for the input to go back, I like to give it a lot of research that was done as well. So for the store that we run right now, it's a DTC supplement brand. We went and got a ton of research, actual clinical studies on our KSM 66 ingredient and our L-theanine ingredient, and we put it into our system. So for context purposes, if we're building a landing page and we really want to highlight the clinical studies, it doesn't need to go search for these things. It's already built in because of the input. So the input and context are kind of too similar, obviously, but they are like the perfect sandwich. They need to be together for that reason of getting to the correct agent jobs. So to our third point, these agent jobs are going to be small, repeatable tasks. They can be even larger things, and I can get into that later. Right now, truthfully, learn from my experience, they are not a magic employee yet. I will preface yet. I am hoping this video will be stale within 6 months because they are as good as something a human would do. But for example, for a lot of monotonous work that I wanted to just outsource to my agents, for example, emails. It reads my emails every single day and it lets me know proper responses it thinks it should do, drafted emails, or things it needs more context on, and it asks me. So I have a daily refresh. Another agent job is checking my TikTok Shop messages. Anyone that's requested samples, anyone that's just DM'd us in general, and I have a whole filtered system of communication cards that we built in, so it knows what kind of card this is contextualized, and what it wants to reply to. These are just examples of more of a medium job with a TikTok shop and a simple one like reading the inbox. Agent jobs is kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole entire workflow, obviously, because you want to make sure the job is operating off of a workflow. So I could have called this workflow or agent jobs, but it's really the same thing. For example, I have a workflow where I have it constantly reaching out to TikTok shop and Instagram shop influencers, okay? I have obviously filters based in of what I'm looking for, engagement rate. I have a database that it's going off of. Shout out Top Yappers. And then also the workflow has just been a trial and error of making things work, where it's pulling the data into an Airtable and it's executing on proper decisions, sending that first DM. And that's something that it can do hundreds of influencers at a time that would have taken me hours. And now just spending 4 to 5 days really building on this workflow, it does it for me. So this is a great example. If I didn't have proper input to match the context, this agent job just would not work. It would just be finding random influencers. So you can kind of understand a little bit. Queues, I guess actually already talked about a little bit, but queues are kind of like the draft responses. The things that it needs approval on is what I would look at this for. And queues are gonna vary per workflow. So I was even hesitant to add it into this list, but I know some workflows need the operator's approval, which is also important. I think that's something you should always set up is daily crons, which if you don't know, in an agent harness for OpenClaw or Hermes, a cron is just a set schedule of it doing something repeatedly that you put it. So queues kind of tie to crons because I have a morning brief cron that hits me every morning and it gives me a rundown of how much sales we made yesterday, and then also which action items we didn't finish yesterday or need to do today. And that queue sits there like, what do you want to get started on? Is there anything that I can automate for you is kind of what it asked me, and we go from there. Readback, one of the more important ones, if not the most important, because one thing about these agents is they're not like concrete perfect yet, okay? You will never make a workflow as of yet and it's gonna work for you 100% right away. I have my influencer workflow that I built out. It took me 5 or 6 days and I'm still critiquing it. It's still making blockers that really don't make sense and there's errors. And at the end of the day, these agent OSs are just not there yet, but they will be there. So learning how to operate within them now is critical. The readback though helps us prevent failure points in the future because there's 2 types of readbacks. One is on the actual agent OS itself, the workflow, and then 2, the readback on the performance of what we're looking at. So if I built a whole entire agent job workflow with the proper in-text and context of what my meta ads were doing, so it knows the actual images, static image ads it's running, the actual UGC videos it's running, it knows the scripts of those UGC videos so it can contextualize like, oh, the hook rate's really working on this. Okay, what's the hook? And it knows because it can read the dialogue, okay? That gives us readback on performance. Like, hey, we should probably go make similar videos with this hook or go source them else, whatever the case may be. The other side to the readback though is, hey, if the workflow is breaking or there's a portion of it that's not talking to each other correctly, there's agents that are not communicating or not doing their job properly, that readback is going to let us know. But you have to establish that. It will not do it from what I've learned by itself. We need to make sure you understand. In most of my workflows, I build out a file, or I tell it to build out a file that is really big on readback, how we can get improvement from here on out. And then lastly in this, decisions. And a decision is as simple as that. If it does everything correctly, then it's up to you. Do you need to change things? Do you need to make decisions to improve things? Do you like what you're getting? Do you need to go forward with maybe making a sub workflow for this workflow? Because sometimes you need other workflows to work for a bigger workflow to work. That comes down to us, the operators. We're the ones making the decision. One thing I can say, especially in the e-com space, if your OS, if it cannot summarize the business safely in your goals, your mission, what you're going for, your channel of revenue, if you can't get that output, it's not nearly ready to talk to customers. So keep that in mind. One thing I need to always check on it occasionally is there too many files? Are we getting redundant information and we need to maybe set up a workflow to clean out the OS? And I actually have that workflow that I built, which is one of the more important workflows that constantly refreshes and checks the OS for redundancy or old things that we've changed. For example, let's just say we pivot from the target audience we're targeting and we build that into the OS, but let's just say it does not know to remove the old target audience. So now we just have two target audiences, and you could see in other workflows that might be confusing. So keep that in mind. That's one of the biggest little gems that I learned along the way, is kind of making sure the OS is clean for this to work, because it's going to get very hefty. I think my current OS for that supplement brand is close to 800 markdown files. It's disgusting, really, and it's a bear to like maintain. Okay, so that in a nutshell is how an agent OS would work if you're getting to the nitty-gritty of it. Simple workflows I'd build if I was starting an ecom brand. I just made a video on this not too long ago, but one of the big ones and easy ones is a founder daily brief. When you have so many different things working, you want just a concise bulleted list of what's going on in the brand day to day. I have it hit me every single morning at 6 a.m. The second one is a customer language miner. This one I talked about in the other video as probably the most important one. In the e-com space, we all know getting angles, finding pain points for our target audience, or even different target audiences, niches within niches, is very important. It takes a lot of time though, and a lot of research. You can build out a workflow to do the mining for you. I broke that down more in depth in the other video. If we want to really get into that, I'm happy to leave a comment. The third one, creator pipeline scouting. For my brand, because our main channel of revenue is influencer marketing through TikTok Shop, that is the most important workflow from a revenue perspective for us. It's also been my biggest pain in the butt workflow, truthfully. But when you really get it working, man, the whole like finding creators, DMing them if they have an email in their bio, emailing them, following up after 48 hours if they haven't responded. These are big things that when I did this manually like 2 to 3 years ago, it was the biggest chokehold on my business because it was such a time suck. TikTok would obviously block you because it says you're sending too many messages and you have to wait an hour to refresh. Such a pain. A lot of that is just automated. Huge workflow. And then the fourth one is kind of what I already talked about, but the workflow that is constantly reading your OS and cleaning it up. Very difficult, and I built it a while ago, so I'd have to like go refresh my mind exactly how I got it, but it works so well. You just want to make sure it's not deleting things without your approval, because that could be bad, but it really is going to clean things up. It's always searching. Keep in mind too, it is a context suck at times because it's reading through a lot of lines in each file. So if you are worried about credit usage, keep that one a little bit in mind. So just to summarize, ask yourselves, I'm an ecom, I'm a veteran, or I'm new, doesn't matter. How can I get an agent OS system or an agent harness to really operate in my business? You got to ask yourself these questions. What inputs do I already have? You probably have way more than you even realize, obviously. Just take a weekend, organize it all, input it into a code base. And before you even start your agent harness, like mine's connected to Discord, I suggest for operating and starting using the actual Claude Code or Codex, to be honest, whatever model you're going to use, but build out the OS properly there first. What context does the agent need? That question really ties into the first one with the inputs. The more the merrier. I don't think there's ever a world where there's too many, unless they're contradicting, but what repeatable job can it do? Big question. It's going to vary per business. And then what queue readback should it produce? I think you should have a readback on every single workflow, but not every single workflow is going to need a approval or need something that it's automated in a queue to do. Some things aren't that complex, so keep that in mind. And where do I approve the final decision? I have it simply just ask me and I hit approve by typing it in, etc. But there's many different variations of how you want to do that. Just matters for your use case. Really hope this information helps. It's hard to really get into an OS to actually build it out. I'd love to do a video where I was basically starting from scratch. That might be the best way to do it, because I don't want to give or show the inside of this brand that I have with the actual files and how we chat with our agent, just because it might show some confiscating information, to be honest. But I really hope, from at least from like a whiteboard perspective, you can kind of understand how to do it. And with that thought process and how you want to structure things, use the LLM to just help guide you. You can even download this video, export it to a TXT, and throw it into Claude Code or Codex and have it watch this video, and then start thinking like an entrepreneur in a way where it's going to build this out to be successful for you and your brand. That's one of the best ways to get started, in my opinion.